Guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another brand new Mattel figure that has just arrived for us to take a look at. This, as you can quite clearly see, is the Mega Destroyer's Pentaceratops. This is one that I've been extremely excited about, waiting quite impatiently for it to arrive because it's one that I just couldn't wait to get in my hands and check out and, of course, add to my collection. But a Pentaceratops from the Mattel line, and a Mega Destroyer's one no less, is super awesome if you ask me, because as you can quite obviously tell already, we have a really nice, very sizable Pentaceratops here, and it probably is the largest ceratopsian I think we've had from Mattel so far, or at least very close. And as per usual, as far as the packaging goes, you can see it's pretty much all of the standard packaging that you get when it comes to the Dino Escape line. And then here on the back, we see kind of a sneak peek of what the action feature and everything is for our Pentaceratops, also how it will escape from the capture gear. And we also have the Mega Destroyer's Carcharodontosaurus version 2 down here in the bottom corner, which we have already reviewed on the channel as well. So I'm super psyched about this. Let's pop it out of the box and check it out. So here is the capture gear, not exactly put together or anything quite yet. We will get there at some point to put that together the way it goes. And then here is our Pentaceratops in all of its glory, and it looks really nice, honestly, out of the packaging. Although I will say that I'm thinking the action feature probably has some kind of definitely a head rearing movement, because the head just kind of sags, and it actually sags all over the place, like it moves back and forth and everything. And one very interesting aspect is that the head sculpt is made of a rubber, which is really cool, so it kind of has that real feel, and I cannot even begin to stress how excited I am about that aspect, because that's one thing that, if you can recall back to the old Kenner line that everybody was a big fan of, myself included, was the, real feel style of the figures, and this one having that real feel style, of course, makes me feel like it's, Kenner related, gives me that really cool Kenner throwback feel, and then on top of that you have capture gear, so that of course also adds to that feeling. But really psyched about that right there, the rubber kind of real feel type of an effect for the head sculpt. So I'm really psyched to check this out. Let's go ahead, get a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Pentaceratops, look at how absolutely beautiful that head sculpt is. That is a truly beautiful, beautiful looking head sculpt for the Pentaceratops. I definitely want to pick up another one of these and repaint it, because with detail this nice, it deserves a very realistic paint scheme. And that's not to say that this one doesn't have that, honestly, because although, of course, being a Mattel figure, it's not totally overloaded with paintwork or realistic coloration or anything, but what we do have absolutely looks natural on the figure and is also really nice and naturally applied. So I really do like the paint scheme for this figure that we have here from Mattel. As far as the sculpt goes, you can see that the nostrils are sculpted really nicely right there on the snout. You can see the mouth as well. The beak is beautiful, painted with kind of an off-white, actually more of a light yellow, but you can see that the detailing of the beak is really nicely done, beautiful, kind of cracks and crevices, some very nice texturing to it. It also sports a gloss coat, so it shines quite nicely. Same deal for the horns up here on the top of the head for the Pentaceratops. Again, all of the horns are extremely nicely textured, very nicely painted, and all sport that kind of glossy look to it. As you move over here into the eye area, you can see the detailing all around the eye looks great. The eye is painted with a yellow, and it's very nicely placed. There's no sloppiness as far as the placement of the eye goes on the one side. This side, however, we absolutely have some sloppiness. It's not terrible. I mean, it hasn't missed the mark too far, but it definitely is a bit of a downside as far as that goes. I don't know when Mattel will ever figure that out. It always amazes me, though, that it's the right side that usually looks good. The left side, the side that's always hidden, is the side that, of course, would be the failed area as far as the eye placement goes. But as we move back into the frill, you can see that the actual texturing to the skin and everything looks incredible. Really nice scale detail all up here on the face, but even moving back here into the frill, again, the scale detail is phenomenal. And as you look around at the figure, look at how many different varying sizes of scales. Every scale honestly looks different than the other. So of course the actual sculpt is super, super highly detailed. Honestly, a few years back, it's the type of figure we would have been dreaming about in the Jurassic World or Jurassic Park line, and now we get them from Mattel, which is awesome. I also love the fact that as we run up along the frill, you can see that these spikes that follow along the frill, each and every one, they're all painted, and they're all painted really nicely. They also all have that very nice textured appearance to them, just like we saw on all of the horns and the beak up here on the snout of the dinosaur. And they're all painted with that nice light yellow. For the majority of the figure, we have a very nice variation of brown, but we also have this dark gray that kind of runs through the eye up into the snout and then up here along the frill. So it gives a really cool kind of flashy appearance to it, but without using super bright flashy coloration. So even more of an appeal factor if you ask me. On the underside, you can see in the lower part of the mouth here, we start to see light yellow coloration that does run down into the throat region of our Pentaceratops. You can see some very nice skin texture and stuff here in the throat region as well. Beautiful like skin wrinkles and creases and stuff as you move back into the throat. As you move back into the body itself, you start to see some very nice muscle definition, even like up here in the shoulder leading down into those front legs. They're very muscular looking, really nicely textured as well. Unfortunately, as per usual though, we don't have nail paint. Really would have liked to have seen it on this figure. The toes and everything though do look really good, and even the nails themselves look great as far as the sculpt goes. You can see some of the speckles, those trademark Mattel speckles, are pretty abundant throughout the course of this figure. It seems definitely, at least in the legs for sure. As you move up here into the stomach region, you can again see more really nice skin texture and stuff in the stomach region of the dinosaur. A few skin wrinkles and stuff down here in the lower part. Really smooth transition from the brown down there into that yellowish underside. And you get some striping up here in the back with that same grayish coloration we saw up in the face and in the frill. And that only runs down to about here again. As per usual, I would have loved to have seen it run the course of the tail, but we only get it out to about there. You can make out the spinal column of the dinosaur though, and you can continue to see how nice the texturing of the skin is. Even back here behind the frill, like down there in the neck, you can see a lot of really nice skin wrinkles and skin creases and stuff. The rear of the frill also sports incredible scale detail. Like that type of scale detail looks like it just needs a dark wash to crawl in and out of those scales, and they just pop so beautifully. Really nice, very vibrant detailing on this figure. Moving back into the thigh, you start to see many more very large scales, much larger than we honestly see elsewhere on the figure. Very nice muscle definition as well. As we move down here, you can see the kneecap in the front of the rear leg. The calf muscle is also very nicely displayed. You kind of like some nice creasing and stuff in the joint of the knee as well. Moving down into the foot, again, the foot sculpt looks really nice. It is weird, though, that we could transition from a nice matte finish on the leg and then down here in the foot, it looks like it has a gloss coat. A little strange as far as that goes. I don't know why it's like that, but interesting. Maybe our Pentaceratops is wading in water and getting a drink. Maybe that's actually why the head's down. That actually makes sense now. But as we move back up into the tail, again, you can see some more really nice detailing, like a few skin creases and kind of skin folds and stuff. The yellow coloration does run the entire underside of the dinosaur. We also have some really nice detailing down here. There's the Jurassic Facts app code since we're down here. And you can also see more speckles and really nice detailing to the underside of the feet. But the yellow coloration tapers off right here before we end out onto the tail with nothing at all color-wise, except for the brown and, of course, some of the speckles. We do have some more really beautiful scale detail, though, moving out into the tail. And again, a really nice curve to the tail, so there's some elegance to our Pentaceratops. And then looking at the opposing side, you're probably not going to really see much of anything too different on this side compared to the initial side, just because of the fact that it's an articulated dinosaur, so you're not going to see too much difference over here compared to what we had just seen on the initial side. But what that means is it looks beautiful, honestly, on both sides. A very, very nice looking Pentaceratops from Mattel in both the sculpt and paint department. And then we have ourselves the capture gear, and the capture gear also looks really cool. Definitely very nicely done as far as what you expect from Mattel capture gear. It looks pretty much like all of the previous capture gear did look, and again has that kind of really nice metallic type of a look to it with the gray that they've used. So very nicely done, nothing too incredible to talk about. It's just kind of like your run-of-the-mill capture gear as far as what Mattel usually releases, but I love the fact that they do include it because, again, it's kind of a throwback to the Kenner line, and it's something that I just have such a huge soft spot for. Hopefully they keep doing this, keep including capture gear on future releases, because I would be over the moon excited if they did. But I'm really interested to see how this particular capture gear works, so let's go ahead and check that out. So of course our Pentaceratops has some nice articulation, and we should probably check that out before we actually check out the capture gear. So you can see there is some really nice articulation in the neck, which can cause the head to go up really high. Beautiful looking, honestly, like that, or really low. The only downside to this is the fact that you can see it just drops. So, you know, it's kind of like the same ordeal with, like, you know, some of the theropods and stuff where, like, you'd like to display them with their mouths open, but you can't, so you kind of have to shove something into the hole to stop it and allow it to stay that way. That's pretty much what you have with the Pentaceratops, because just like with the mouths, you know, like you can't just pull it up, you can't pull the head up and just leave it there, so it just kind of sags, but would look way cooler if it had its head up like this. Regardless, I still think it looks nice, and you can also see that we can kind of swivel the head around like that, so super nice articulation, lots as far as that goes. You also have articulation in the legs, forward and back. You do have articulation in the midsection, almost Beasts of the Mesozoic-like as far as this goes. So some really nice articulation there. You have articulation in the rear legs, and of course they can also move out away from the body. And then you have articulation in the tail. Really, really nice, very smooth articulation, can completely swivel around. In fact, so much so that when the figure had arrived, it looked ridiculous, and I didn't even notice it till I went to do the closer look. Because it was sitting like this, the tail was actually upside down. But again, some really, really nice articulation. And then we have the action feature buttons up here. So if we press this one, we've got that super nice kind of action feature of the head rearing up and attacking, striking. And then we have another button back here, so we'll see what that one does. So the body kind of turns to strike some sort of dinosaur from the side, and we also have the action feature there, so we can kind of do the two of them together, which creates some very interesting looking movements for our Pentaceratops. I really do like that. I think that was a really cool idea on the part of Mattel. Again, continuing to be creative, a little bit innovative when it comes to their products, and definitely a really neat action feature that feels a little bit fresh in comparison to some of the others. As far as the capture gear goes, let's go ahead and get it on the head. So we have our capture gear on, which honestly was a little confusing to figure out how to put it on. But once it's on, it does look really cool. It was just a little confusing to actually figure out how to get it on. But once it is on, it does look really neat. I will say it doesn't snap together too well, like it just kind of falls off before I even use the action feature. So I'm certain it's going to come off very easily. And I was kind of right, so it does break off. It doesn't stay on there too well, or at least mine specifically doesn't, but, you know, it does what it's supposed to. It works, I guess, pretty well. For a size on our Pentaceratops, for a length from that horn, which would probably be the longest area, to the tail, you are looking at about the 13-inch range, or about 33 centimeters. And then for a height, when its head is down like this, in the position that it just kind of sits in, to the top of the frill, about 7 inches, or roughly around the 18 centimeter mark, maybe 17 and a half, approaching 18 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line in comparison to our Pentaceratops right here. And you can see that without question, it is a very large figure, absolutely oversizing almost every figure that you see over here to the left. The Papo Rex is even actually a little bit shorter than our Pentaceratops, so definitely a very large figure on the part of Mattel. And then for yet another comparison, we have a few more Mattel figures here, again furthering the very large size here, trying to show you, especially in comparison to like one of the Ankylosaurus figures, the Roar Attack or Roarivores, I forget which one that one specifically is, but the Pentaceratops is, you know, really quite large in comparison to all of the figures that we see here. And then for one final comparison, there is the Mattel Tyrannosaurus in comparison to the Pentaceratops. So again, that is definitely a very big ceratopsian. The Rex is a very, very large figure on the part of Mattel. And for the Pentaceratops to be so large in comparison to that Rex, that really shows you just how impressive the Pentaceratops is overall when it comes to the size. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Mega Destroyer's Pentaceratops is another fantastic figure, and definitely one of my favorite releases from Mattel in quite some time. It's a Pentaceratops, so instantly it's awesome. We don't have too many Pentaceratops figures, and we definitely haven't had any in the Jurassic World toy line or Jurassic Park toy line prior to this, so instantly it's exciting to have a new species entering the line, especially a new Ceratopsian, and not only a new Ceratopsian, but a new Ceratopsian this big. It is a very large figure, and that is another of the many appealing aspects to this Pentaceratops. instantly I just have to comment on the fact that I so much love the real feel head of this figure. It is so awesome to have that kind of throwback to the Kenner line, and I know that's something that's going to probably sit well with many others. Something many people are going to enjoy is that kind of real feel type of a head for the Pentaceratops, and the detailing of the head is phenomenal for having that nice real feel head. Like, there is some insane, really beautiful and vibrant detail included on the head sculpt of this Pentaceratops, and the sculpt in general is just so beautiful, with some very nice looking paintwork to the entire figure. And it doesn't just stop there. The really beautiful detailing continues throughout the entire course of the figure, looking just like a very large, very healthy and muscular Pentaceratops. And Mattel always does a great job on their sculpts, but like I had stated recently in another review, that they just continue to get better and better all the time with their sculpts, and I feel like they just improve with every single release. And this one might honestly be one of the most highly detailed Mattel figures that we've had so far. The paintwork as well is really quite nice. Again, it's not anything incredible, but it's definitely nicely done for what it is. As per usual, I would have liked to have seen nail paint and maybe those stripes running out onto the tail, but the stripes kind of running up along the back of the dinosaur still do look really good. They look like that's, where they belong, how they should be, and it doesn't look as awkward where they stop before the tail like some of the theropods and stuff usually do. It doesn't look like it's too out of place when it stops up there on the back on this particular figure, but it still would have been nicer to have at least a little more color variation out onto the tail. But even excluding the lack of color variation out onto the tail, I still feel like the application of the paint is really nice and natural throughout. It's a pretty nice looking paint scheme they've come up with, and I do love the fact that they have that yellow coloration from the lower jaw all the way running out onto almost the tail, so that's a plus for the figure. I really wish we could have been able to pose the head up as opposed to just leaving it sag. It would have been nicer to have the ability to actually put the head up and, articulate it and display it in different ways without having to shove something into the action feature button. But maybe they'll re-release the figure at a later date with a different style of articulation, which will allow us to do that. Regardless, this is a really cool figure with a really nice looking paint scheme, some awesome articulation, and it comes with capture gear with a real feel head. So honestly, there's really not much that you could complain about when it comes to this release. It is a fantastic release from Mattel, and I am beyond excited to have a Mattel Pentaceratops now in my collection. So if you are interested in this, I will include a link in the description to where you can purchase this on Target.com. So make sure you head on over to Target right now, check that link in the description, go buy this beautiful Pentaceratops, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.